What is up? What's good with you? It's your boy Hood He back again on the Fantasy Channel. Got our first non AI video. Something has come across my attention, and many of the people on the internet as well have seen it. And that is Aragorn being painted as a so called black person. Now, before you get up in arms, either side, whether you right or left or centrist or whatever you are, we have to understand the principle of respecting source material, okay? If you are going to do a live action adaptation, like in the case of The Little Mermaid, a book adaptation, in the case of Game of Thrones, for example, or anything of this nature, of an existing work, you have to stay true to that existing work. If you don't, you're doing not only yourself a disservice, but you're doing the listener, the viewer, the person who enjoys the content a disservice, especially when you pass it off as something sacred or something holding the original intent of the work in high esteem, like Amazon did with Lord of the Rings and what they're doing now with Aragorn being depicted as a black man. We all know, anybody who knows Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien's work, Tolkien, as some people would say, we know Tolkien's work is a Anglo-Saxon, Northern European mythos-style world. We know that. And he has other races inside of the story, maybe not explicitly Negro, but it could be, worked out and finagled, like in the case of a mod for Crusader Kings 3 that depicts Lord of the Rings, Realms in Exile, in which you have black people in that mod. The people, they formulated things that would make sense in the universe and put it in the game to add to it. You have things like Lord of the Rings Online that expands it. You have different Lord of the Rings games and modifications to other existing franchises that add depth to the world and the story that Tolkien told. But never once did they do something as drastic as change Aragorn, for example, or Gandalf into being something they aren't. That's like making a female Gandalf, a gay, trans, black Frodo. Aragorn is a central character, very central character to the story. One of the main characters. A very important guy, right? He is described as being pale with dark hair. So a scruffy looking dude that is pale skinned. Obviously, this is a European description. Where in the hell could you extrapolate him being a black man? That is nothing but woke ideology trying to pander to Twitter users and different people on the left and giving them something fake representation. Instead of making a black Aragorn, I would rather you have made, like in Shadows of War, I would rather you have made a character totally new, totally different, that is not a ripoff of other characters, but has his own backstory, et cetera, that makes sense in the world. Like, for example, they tried to do this with one of the black male elf characters from Lord of the Rings, Amazon's Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. And that shows a complete travesty that we will touch on later. People have done it ad nauseum, but I want to add my 2 cents to it. But they gave this Dominican brother a role. I believe he's Dominican. I think he's an Afro-Latino brother. But they gave this dude a role in this show and wrote him as a black elf. Now we know that all the elves throughout Tolkien's history are described as Europeans. And the way that they did it was so lazy. They didn't actually make a feasible example for why a dark-skinned African-type person would be in a European setting, would naturally occur. Wheels of Time did the same thing. Wheels of Time did the same thing, where you have dark black people being depicted in these European climates where they are seemingly endemic and indigenous to the area. You have to provide evidence for this. You have to prove to me that this makes sense. And they did not do that with Aragorn. They didn't do it with Rings of Power, Wheels of Time. Excuse me, I said it wrong. They didn't do it with any of these things. Wheels of Time. I got to say it properly. They'll accuse me of being a liar. So, or an idiot, an invalid. They do it with these franchises. They did it with The Witcher, where they made the elves black for some reason. It's like, okay, if you're going to have black elves, give me a reason for there being black elves. Give me a reason for there being elves of this or dwarves of this, dwarves of color, whatever. Don't give me some surface level hat tip head nod that doesn't really actually further my goals and my initiatives as a black person, just to pander to me and get woke diversity points for your ESG money. That type of stuff I'm not interested in, okay? I would rather listen to a story about all white people than listen to a story about a contrived, weakly written character, a garbage character that has been race swapped. Or everything has been stolen from another character, like, for instance, Conan is now a black woolly-haired dude. It's like, no. Don't make a black Chimerian or Cimmerian. Make me a black Nubian in that universe. Or another universe, your own universe. I'd rather see that. And that's what I did with my book, which is coming out soon. I will be posting the links to that shortly. We are trying to set that up right now, so stay tuned for that. But I have elves of both European and fantasy races, and other types have been inspired to make these elves. They're not all a monolith, though. They don't all come from the same place. Some of them are older than others. And that was done intentionally to give reality and a grounding principle to the universe that I'm creating. And other people have done this as well with their fantasy works. We want it to make sense. The people will say, the critics, oh, it's fantasy. Why do you care so much? Because this entertainment medium is an art form. Fantasy, books, science fiction, whatever you want to call it, these are art forms that express the human condition, the human soul. So what does it tell me about you that you feel comfortable with being pandered to with cheap garbage? Corporatist, cheap garbage. What does that tell me about you, dear listener who disagrees? You know what I'm saying? Just marinate that a little bit. Think about it. Think before you speak. You know what I'm saying? That makes no sense. I don't want a character that's half poorly written, okay? I don't want a black Batman. I want a different character that's on the same level. And to be frank, I don't want to sound like a quote-unquote traitor or a treacherous individual, but we would never see a White Panther, for instance, an Aryan Black Panther that's just the White Panther, and not complain about that. Nobody would. Everybody would have a problem with it, except the most hardcore racist types. Everybody would have a fucking problem with it. Why is that? Because it's just completely alien to the concept that was initially put forth. And Black Panther was written by non-black people. You know what I'm saying? So that's another level to it. But that doesn't really matter if they did it justice, if they did their research, they made a grounded character that makes sense with a good plot, good story, good hooks, all that type of stuff. They have understandable lore. Yes, it's fantasy, but with suspension of disbelief, you can look at it like, okay, I know it's fantasy, but this could kind of happen maybe if, things were different. That type of fantasy, I believe, is more immersive. I know that's a key word for the gamers, but that's more immersive. That's more entrancing. I'm more interested in that because I can relate to it. I can still relate to go back to the race skin color thing, I can relate to Aragorn more than I can black Aragorn. And it's not because he's black. That's not what I'm relating to. I'm relating to the core tenets, the ideals, the foundations of this character, what he does, what he espouses, what he goes through, what does he learn on his journey. I can identify with that. And I think when you write for that, instead of diversity points, I identify with him, or I want people to identify with him because he's gay or he's 10 feet tall or whatever, instead of superficial things that do matter. But in this case, they don't. Instead of that, right? Why don't we have a character that transcends things like that? Or if you do have a character that is steeped in their history, have them be original and not lecturing people all the time about how certain identity groups are bad. You feel me? Certain identity groups are evil. We don't have to lecture all the time. We can have a historical discussion even still. Say, for instance, you have a character that is, I don't know, for example, a colonialist character. You can speak to your politics through that character. But beating people over the head is not going to win them over, okay? Subtlety is everything. Subtlety is key. If you want to make a political message in a colonial era fiction, do it in a subtle, nuanced way that shows all different aspects correct to history, if you're going to do that. Don't make stuff up. Don't be lying, you know what I'm saying? Because then people smell that out and then they have a problem with it. And now you got a whole backlash. And we see that a lot of this woke stuff is starting to be pushed back against, and thank God, because I don't like it either. And I hate to say it as that black guy, because I am not a tap dancer. I do not tap dance for people. But as a black dude, I don't want to be pandered to. I want my own thing. Or if you're going to co-opt or not even co-op, if you're going to do a work, say based in Africa or Black Aboriginal America or Kemet or whatever, Tamiri, you want to do a work based in that. You don't have to make it woke where all the characters are gay and whatnot. Just stick to the source material or what you're drawing from. You know what I'm saying? Don't add all this identity politics where it doesn't belong, because it ruins and cheapens the story. You know what I'm saying? I think I talked about this ad nauseum. I think I broke it down enough. But Black Aragorn, to surmise it, is wrong. Return him to what he was. It's not racist to have white people represented in good positions. It's not racist to have black people represented in bad positions. The only time, I should say, that it becomes racist is when you do it in bad faith. When you do it in bad faith. For example, all the black people in the story are just destitute. They have no culture, no nothing. Or the inverse of that, all the white people are destitute. That's when it gets racist. That's when it gets bigoted and prejudiced, because you're trying to obviously tell me something by making all the characters of a certain race, the characters of a certain gender or whatever, the bad guy. You're trying to tell me something. So let's cut that out and actually detail these things the way they should be. Do justice to the source material. Do justice to Tolkien. Do justice to whatever author you adapt. Let's do justice to what they wanted to convey. That's why people respect and love the Peter Jackson films to this day, and many other of the works that were not tainted by this woke mind virus. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I don't want to hold y'all too long. I appreciate y'all for pulling up. Definitely subscribe to this channel. Watch the content, like and share to the people that you think might enjoy this. Also, comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts, whether they be in agreement or disagreement. We can have a simple discussion. Hopefully that won't devolve into a name calling. So I do appreciate you guys coming through. Check out the other channel, Hood He Speaks, or just Hood He, in which I talk about general things, you know what I'm saying? This is more fantasy oriented. Pay attention to the channel. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming through. Like I said, I will have that book done this summer. I'm going to try to put it on Amazon to sell it so y'all can pick it up, critique it, give your thoughts, comments, hopefully in good faith. Because if you don't do it in good faith, I'd have to get on you. You feel me? If you don't do it in good faith, I'm going to have to cook you. So, yeah, and make content out of it, monetize it. So, with that being said, man, I have nothing more to speak about. Hopefully this woke stuff goes away. And I'm not saying that people can't have representation, but make it genuine and honest and nuanced even. So, peace.